Yeah. Okay. You guys can. Anyways, thank you all for joining. I hope that we will do more of these again. Now that I'm not as burnt out, dude. Never. I'm gonna ban you. It's just not. It's not funny. Um. So yeah, we'll hit a couple things today. So I definitely want to talk about the influx of players. I'm not gonna read my announcement, but I'll kind of touch on some of the points that I discussed there. Kind of what this means for Northwind and just some of our future plans. I have a couple big hitting topics that people want to know about. So I'll be discussing those and then maybe taking a couple questions. I feel like it kind of gets unhinged when I start taking questions, so I probably won't do a ton of them, but I'll do like a select few. So first things first, right? I want to talk about the Roblox standout games. I guess occurrence. I don't know how to describe that, but essentially, like I explained in the announcement, right? Roblox does this for games that they see as a extension of what they want out of the platform, right? I was kind of talking about this a little bit in general chat yesterday, and I don't want to speak to knowing what Roblox does or why they do things, but it's probably in their interest to start promoting games that are not just brain rot slop. It's bad for their advertisers. And while they might make more money from Roblox purchases, they're making a lot less from the advertising, which is a substantial portion of Roblox's revenue. So if I were to guess as to why they are starting to promote more games that are higher quality, that would be why. The games change every 24 to 36 hours. It's not a super long lasting thing, but the idea is that they'll frequently promote games on there, especially when those games have some sort of larger update, right? So they want to work with developers to help boost their engagement when they're doing something new to their game. So we're already in conversations with them about scheduling our next sort of, I guess our next appearance on the standout games, kind of timing it with some of our updates. So that'll be really exciting. We learned quite a bit from this exercise that we got. We obviously had a massive influx of players. Fortunately, a lot of which have stayed, right? I mean, 468 for us on a Sunday is pretty high up. We would probably normally expect to be sitting somewhere around 300, like on the high end on a Sunday is our normal. So we're substantially up from that. The Discord gained a couple hundred players, which is great. The group gained quite a number of players, and I think the biggest metric that we were excited about is we got a ton of favorites, which is really exciting. People who favorite the game get alerted when we do new events, so that's really good for us. And for the community overall. What I will say about the audience that we were targeted with, they were nowhere near our prime demographic, obviously. We definitely skew towards older audiences, and specifically American audiences. And I can tell you from what Roblox told me, we were focused on none of that. So we were pushed primarily in front of Korean, Japanese, and Portuguese speaking audiences, which is not our target. We did get worldwide attention briefly, and we also got, all of our existing players were pushed with content, but we definitely were not pushed to, we were definitely not pushed to the entire world or to America. So, good things to note, right? That it just wasn't our target demographic, but we're still retaining people. So very happy about that. Okay, I have to close the chat. I can't read that, and you guys telling me you're not hearing me. So, all things were good. We definitely found some areas in the tutorial that we want to improve upon, which is really great. We found areas after the tutorial that we want to improve upon, which is great. We found, some really fringe bugs that were causing a cascade of issues, which is really awesome for us because, without having a mass amount of players, it'd be difficult to identify those. So overall, it was really good. Another thing that I'm really excited about coming out of that is, I expected our stats to tank, truthfully, after that, right? One would expect when we have, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people that are coming into the game that are not our target demographic, our stats would naturally drop. And while we had some stats drop, like our overall play time went down, that's expected. There's a lot of people joining and leaving. What didn't go down is our retention rates, which we're super excited about. Our playthrough rates are still stable, and in some cases went up. And our revenue and pay rates, which is a really important metric for Roblox, also went up. I will talk slower. Yeah, I'll talk slower. So, yeah, let me play chat again. So yeah, all good things coming out of that. I think that going into the next standout instance that we'll have, we'll be a lot better prepared just for engaging those players after the tutorial, which is one of the biggest criticisms that we had. So we're very excited. That kind of covers that. I don't really think that there's a need for questions for that. It was a great thing for the game, for the community. I'm very appreciative that most of our players were very friendly to the new players. I didn't see a ton of instances of toxicity. And one of the good metrics for that is Roblox's feedback system. We can see what people say when they upvote or downvote. And, typically we see lots of downvotes about toxicity and, mean players losing their stuff, things of that nature. And we didn't see that much, which is very exciting for us. So thank you to the community for not being our usual selves, I guess is a good way to put that. Then going into some of our future plans here. So like I was talking about in my announcement, I think that there's been a lot of communication issues between staff / development and the overall community. A lot of that is just burnout, right? We already are doing this as more of a hobby than anything else. And then coming into having to do Q&As and community engagement with a community that is just doesn't particularly like us is not a very fun thing to do. I think that that's gotten better. And, this definitely gave us a really good shot in the arm to continue and not feel as burnt out. So very excited for that. I probably will not be doing these weekly like I initially wanted to, but I definitely will be doing these more often than not. I will also be doing some more updates to the community in terms of what we're working on, why we're doing things. I'm explaining our decisions more. I think that there is a very big issue in Northwind of misinformation, and there's a lot of extrapolation that happens when we make decisions, especially when we don't overly explain them. We make decisions that, from our point of view, make the most sense and are beneficial to the game, but a lot of the community can't see that. And so I think we'll do a better job of explaining why we're doing things and, working kind of down in communication with you guys. So expect things of that nature. I don't know what that exactly will look like. Maybe it's more announcements. Maybe it's more Q&As, probably a combination of the two, but we'll continue to work towards that. In that vein, I'd like to update everyone on kind of what we're working on right now over the next month or so. I think it's pretty fun and should be really good. So we kind of have 3 major tracks right now on the development side. So we're working on forts, bug fixes, and new quests. And so I'll go into each one of those. So forts, I think, are relatively self-explanatory to you guys. We want to work on bringing back the fort system, just drastically overhauled. I'll go into a little bit of detail of what we're planning without posting screenshots. I don't want to step on Tiber's toes here. I think that he hates when I steal his thunder with teasers, so I'll wait for him to post something. But I'll go post something in booster teasers. That's what I'll do. That's a good compromise. So go look in booster teasers if you want to see it, or in any of the various servers in about 3 minutes after the boosters release it. Okay, yeah, that's posted in booster leaks. So essentially, nice hides. That was quick. So basically what we want to do with forts is hides, don't repost it, please. Get a couple boosts. Thank you. Basically what we want to do with forts is kind of bridge a lot of the problems that we had with the initial system. So some of those were, it was a massive moderation problem, right? Allowing players to build forts was very difficult for us to moderate because they would do things that weren't intended with the system. Like I've talked about before, when we initially made the fort system, or I'm not going to say we, when Fred specifically made the fort system, it was a great idea. You're going to have people making really cool colonial style forts, and it's going to be fun. It'll fit the theme really well. It'll look great. In practice, what ended up happening is people were using it to build essentially unraidable forts. It ended up just not being a very good experience, and I think that it ended up honestly being quite ugly to the game. It didn't look great for new players to see a massive wooden block in the middle of the frontier. And while that's a minor problem, I do think that it just overall helps, or it overall harms the ambience of the game. So the way we're going to address that, and the way we intend to address that, is by porting over at least parts of the system that were in Imperium, which is a pre-built fort system. So essentially, your faction will here. I'll just kind of read you what we have in our roadmap for the ideas. Basically, you'll have your regular fort. You'll go capture it. If it's a brand new server and it's an SLC control island, there will be SLC guards there. That if the SLC capture it, will help guard them or guard that fort until they die, or any other faction will just have to kill them. Once they own the fort, they'll be able to upgrade parts of the fort and repair the walls, things like that. So they'll be able to add things like trading posts that will give the the faction that controls it additional income. They'll be able to build and add traps, so things like stakes or trapdoors. They'll have a fort storage system where they can add, weapons, munitions, bandages, only accessible by the faction owner's faction above a certain rank. There's going to be a ton of preset designs, but it's not going to be just one style. People are going to be able to customize the forts in the extent of choosing the upgrades and the paths that they want to go down, which will give some variety, but still keeping it stylistically appropriate for Northwind. You'll be able to get faction experience, which I've talked about quite a bit. You'll be able to build mortars and cannons that are built into the fort, which are great. You'll be able to. Sorry, I'm skimming. Let's see. You'll be able to raise faction forts. So if you conquer a fort that another faction owns, you'll be able to either destroy everything that they've built for a quick, a quick payout into your faction coffers, or you'll be able to prepare it and maintain it. But I think it should add a lot more engaging gameplay. The other thing that will be really neat with this is you'll be able to kind of adjust the loot pools that you'll get from the fort by capturing forts in a more populated island, right? So, larger servers, you'll have quicker unlocks with the chests, and you'll also be able to have, higher loot drops. So I think all of that should make it a lot more engaging and actually force people to fight over the forts instead of just, go to empty servers and grab them. So pretty excited for that. I think that we're going to start testing that here relatively soon and then roll it out at some point, but I don't want to give dates. The next kind of thing that we want to work down is bug fixes, obviously. We found a lot of bugs during this influx of players that we're wanting to address, things related to data, things related to soft locks on the tutorial, things like that. So we'll want to work down that. I will say that we're actively working on the data problems, the saving problems, the anti-dupe, anti-cheat bugs that are occurring, and we hope to have a solution to those soon. And the last kind of track that I want to talk about is sort of a Buval overhaul / kind of quests. So one of the biggest sort of, I don't want to say complaints, but points of criticism that we got coming out of the tutorial is, we had all of these new players who then didn't know what to do after they came out. They finished the tutorial, it's very hand-holdy, guided, then they just dropped in Buval and they don't really know what to do. So what we want to do is we want to expand Northwind to have more of a traditional MMO feel in terms of stories, in terms of quests. And what that's going to look like for Buval is, somewhere along the lines of 20 or 30 quests with some unique rewards, ducat rewards, pounds, some unique cosmetics, things like that for players to complete. That should add quite a bit of content, especially for new players. I think for our older players, they may not want to partake in all of it, but I think that new players will find it really appealing. And even for old gens, I guess, I think that you guys would would enjoy it. And then also a large amount of side quests to go along with that. So that's kind of our next big 3 tranches of things we want to work on. After that, it's going to be things like horses, natives, some of the other stuff that we've been discussing. So that's all sort of still planned. We have higher priorities in terms of bugs and features than natives and or horses at the moment. So I think that's kind of all of our major updates. I'll take some questions in the chat, in the open forum chat. Let's see. When can we show horses? I don't really want to give any concrete deadlines. We have memory leaks that we want to patch with the horses. So I'd say that you can expect to see them rolled out in phases. That'll probably start with SLC and NFC so that we can have it on a limited scope, but still see the impact to the server and the memory. And then as we patch some of those gaps and make some adjustments on our end, we'll probably start rolling it out more to the general public. What features do we expect for horses? Being able to ride them, definitely use them for storage, some stats on them potentially, and then some light usage for combat. To answer Never's question, we saw about 10% of the new players finish the tutorial, which is kind of what we were aiming for. When we made it, we were hoping that we'd get anywhere between 7 and 14%. So 10 kind of sits right in the middle of that. We're pretty happy with that rate, and we found a lot of improvements that we think for the next round of Roblox Standout, we'll be able to retain more of those. So we're pretty happy for that. Let's see. Lore-wise, we have some things in the works as well as expanding the team. So stand by for announcements on that. Not really something I'll talk about, but I'll let the team there address that kind of as they do. So let's see what else. I think that kind of covers all the questions. I'll answer this one because it's been posted. Remember how badges can be claimed. Yeah, we definitely want to rework badges overall. The system definitely is not really conducive to a one role system. And I think that it was a really early system for Northwind that just never got overhauled. And so I think that there's a lot of things that need to be addressed as a quality of life update. But that's not a massive problem at the moment. But it is something that we want to address. Most players will be able to obtain horses. It's not going to be a faction exclusive at all. I think it'll roll out to factions first as a way for us to test it, but it'll definitely not stay that way. Horses will be temporary in the sense that they can be killed, but you won't lose it if you server hop. So only if you get killed or you're unable to pay to feed it, you'll lose it in that way. So I think that's all of my points that I want to hit. I'd look out for some more of these coming soon. And then we'll probably be rolling out bug fixes and some additional hot fixes throughout the week / going into next weekend. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great remainder of their weekend. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, I think that kind of covers it for me. Thank you all for attending this. I hope to see you guys in game and coming back to the Q&As. But thanks, Northwind. Have a great Sunday.